Does the wiring under your Honda Goldwing seat look something like this? Well, maybe not this bad, but as I got my 2024 Honda Goldwing and I started adding accessories, I wanted something a little better. So I'm going to show you how to take something that looks kind of like this and make it look something like this. So this is what my 2024 Honda Goldwing looks like underneath the seat after I have wired up all of the accessories that I currently have installed on the bike. Looks pretty nice, if I do say so myself. Now, I had several goals when I started this project. My first objective is I wanted it to look neat and clean underneath the seat. When I take off my seat, I don't want to see a bunch of wires strung around. I don't want to see a bunch of open connectors. I want everything to be tucked away so it looks OEM or at least very custom. My second objective is that the system be easily extensible. So if I need to add additional lighting or accessories later on, it'll be easy to do so without having to do a bunch of reworking. I wanted this installation to be moisture-proof, moisture-resistant. I have decided to split this up into 3 different videos. This video is part 1, where I kind of go over my theory of why I want 4 different junctions on the motorcycle to make things easier to access and easier to work on. We'll talk about that in this video, and I'll show you how I accomplish that. In the second video, I'm going to show you how I protect the wires on the front of the bike from engine heat. And then in part 3, which is only going to be available to my YouTube members, I'll show you how I'm going to protect the wires and the connectors from moisture. If you're not currently a member of my YouTube channel, I invite you to get more information by clicking that little join button underneath this video, and it will explain the various levels of membership. So let's get started. I want to warn you ahead of time that this is a fairly long video because I am going to let you see the process of me trying to figure out how I wanted to do this. I did make some changes along the way. Some things I tried didn't work the way I wanted them to, so I had to kind of change course. I decided to leave a lot of that content in because I want you to see the thought process that goes through creating a custom wiring system like this. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please put your comments in down below. If you do enjoy the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. That really helps the YouTube rankings. Okay, now I'm ready to get started.
This video is sponsored by Cruiseman's Garage Honda Goldwing Maintenance Video Series.
For this custom installation, I am choosing to use the power accessory hub from PathfinderLED. I've been using these for years. They're waterproof. I find them to be extremely reliable and high quality. I've never had a problem with one. I think I'm on my 3rd one. And I've got this, that's how I did my wiring. Now, you could just as easily use the isolator fuse block from Showchrome or even the Gold Strike power bar. I think Electrical Connection also has a similar product. Any of these would work. You just have to adapt to that type of system. Okay, so what I've decided to do is to split the accessory. The green is the accessory coming off of the power accessory hub, and I'm splitting that for a left and a right. I'm using red because that way I'll remember it's for power, even though it's really accessory power. It's not hot all the time power. I don't ever use hot all the time power. If I do, I'll come up with another color for that. But I just never use it. You'd usually use that maybe for riding gear. I'm not sure. Maybe for some sort of a power hub. I don't ever have anything powered all the time. So this is my accessory. This is the running lights. Their running light is white. I'm using light blue or blue as my running light. And that will go, this one will go to the left side or right side. This will go to the left. And it's all going to fit down into this box, this little terminal box here, very neatly. And we'll put a lid on that. so you won't really ever see it. It'll just look like this. These are the two wires that will go to the right side of the bike down here. I will, of course, put these in a loom so that they're neatly tucked away. The power accessory hub is going to go over here, and then this little splitter box will go somewhere in front of it or next to it so that it's also out of the way. These are the wires that connect to the bike harness. I'll route those later. Okay, welcome to my wiring mess that I'm creating this morning. So this is the PathfinderLED power accessory hub, and it's got all of these wires coming out from the main circuits, you know, for the brake light, ground, hot, accessories, and so forth, left turn, right turn. And what I had done in the past is I had created kind of a rat's nest of Wago connectors underneath the seat of my 2018 Honda Goldwing. And so what I'm trying to do is a little bit more of a custom installation. This is not something everybody I think would want to do, and I don't even know if it's going to work yet. I haven't finished it. I'm just thinking this through. But I'll show you an example of what I've done here on this is the running light. The white wire is the running light. So when you turn the motorcycle on, this is always hot. Similar to the accessory in a sense, but it is a running light circuit. So what I have is I have the main wire coming out of the Pathfinder, and then I've spliced in two wires which will go to the left side of the bike, and two wires which will go to the right side of the bike. Now, one of these wires is pretty long because it's going to go all the way to the front of the bike. One of them is relatively short, maybe, I don't know, 12 inches long. I've left myself plenty of excess just so I could trim it off later. And all of these wires will be loomed up under the seat once I get this done, if I get it done, if it works. And same on the left side. Now on the running light, I'm going to have these wires going both front and rear on both sides of the bike. Now the idea is that rather than every time I have an accessory installed, running all those wires all the way back to underneath the seat and then ending up with this big clump of wires, I will be wiring things in a location on the front left side of the bike, one on the right front, left front, right rear, left rear. So I'll have little junction boxes like this, hopefully. That's my goal. And my Wago connectors will be inside this box. And hopefully I can find a nice, neat, out-of-the-way place to mount all these. I haven't fully decided yet. I've pretty much decided where I'm going to put them on the front of the bike. On the rear, on the left rear is the toughest because you got the battery in the way. Right rear I don't think is going to be a big issue. So this way, when I do add an accessory, if I need to add something new, I don't have to run the wires up under the seat. I should be able just to pop off either the left side cover, right side cover, or a couple of trim pieces on the front to get to my wires. I don't have to take the seat off every time I add or need to trace down a problem. So that's my goal. So today I've got all my wires cut for all the different circuits, and I'm going to go ahead and splice all these in. So this morning I'm going to show you the technique that I used to splice the wires on this power accessory hub from PathfinderLED. Now, I could have used Wago connectors. I could have also used some T connectors, which I'll show you on the screen, and I'll also put links to all of these products in the description of the video. I could have done that. The reason I didn't want to use the T connectors is because, once again, I'm going to end up with a little more clutter underneath the seat. I didn't think I'd like the look of it. There are some connections where I only need to go to one side of the bike. So for example, this is a 16 gauge wire, we're going to pretend that this is the wire coming out of the Pathfinder LED, and I need to split that into two different wires. If it's something like the left turn signal, it only is going to be going to the left side of the bike. So I basically need to turn this wire into two wires, because I'm going to have one going to the front of the bike and one going to the rear of the motorcycle. So I need a way to splice this 16 gauge into these two 18 gauge wires. It could also be 16 gauge wires. I'm just using this as an example because this is most commonly what I did. There are some wires on the bike. For example, the running light. On the Pathfinder LED, there's only one running light circuit coming out of the unit. So in that case, I need to not only go left and right, but I also need to go front to back. And how do I do that? Well, I'm just going to show you a couple of different techniques for the splicing. You could solder these wires if you're good at soldering. I'm not very good at soldering. I'm always looking for shortcuts and easier ways to do things. I've been very happy with these solder seal wire connectors. These are heat shrink connectors. So you do get a waterproof, moisture-proof connection, and they have the solder included in the connector. So if you look closely at the connector, you'll see you'll basically put a wire into each end until they meet up in the middle, and then you can heat these with a heat gun, and it melts this little solder ring, so it basically solders the wires together, and you have a good strong seal. And then you've got this little colored heat shrink tubing that grips the wire tightly so that it is basically waterproof. I've been very happy with these. I've never had one fail. They've just been very reliable. I will put a link in the description of where you can get these on Amazon. They have them for all different gauges of wires. I need to go in here. It tells you on the side here what it is. This is 16 to 14, but we're going to be putting two of these wires together on one end and our 16 gauge on the other end. Let me show you how this works. We'll strip back the wire using my wire stripper. And what you'll see is this wire is going to go in like this to about this point right here. So you can see a little bit of that wire sticking out the other side of that solder ring. Now let's strip back our other wires. So I'm going to take my two smaller, my 18 gauge, and I'm going to twist them together like that. One end of this solder connector, and you can see it does fit in there. And I want to make sure that the wire is past that solder ring. And while I'm holding those wires in place, I'm going to insert my 16 gauge in the other end, and it will go past, as you can see. So all three wires are past that solder ring on the opposite side, so that when we heat this up, it should provide a good seal. Now, the question is, as you start to heat this with your heat gun, you want to make sure you're working on a surface that won't melt. So you want to be careful if you're working on your bike and you have this near plastic. That heat gun could melt the plastic on your motorcycle. So you want to be very careful that you have something to shield this connector, or you could just hold it out into space like I'm doing here. Of course, your hand could get very hot, so you want to be careful of that. But you want to be able to hold it in such a way that these wires won't move until that solder ring melts. So I'm just going to do it on this wood tabletop, because that wood, it isn't going to hurt it to get hot. when doing this on the bike. You could also use a small piece of wood to protect the plastic, kind of shield it, put it behind this connector that you're heating up, and that will keep you from melting the plastic on your motorcycle. Now if you start heating on the outside first, it will start to hold those wires in place so that they won't move on you. It will shrink that little plastic ring around those the insulation of the wire. And then we can melt the solder. And you'll see the solder begin to run into the wires. I believe right there, if we look at it, you can now see how that solder has bound those wires together. And the ends of these wires have now been sealed very good. So this isn't going anywhere. It's a very, very solid connection. Now to finish it off, what we want to do to make it look good, of course, if I was working on the bike, I would have already slipped, before I put these wires together, I would have already slipped a heat shrink tube over this. Once again, I have my heat shrink tubing I get from Amazon. I have a couple of different collections. This is pretty good, but they're not very long. So if you need a longer piece of heat shrink, I have another option for you. They also are not huge diameter, but on something like we just did, these would probably work okay. But they're not, like I say, they're not very long and they're not very big diameter. I have some that require some really large diameter. In this one, I really like this assortment. They're not colorful, they're all black, but they have some options here that are really huge, and they give you the inside dimensions. So if you need some really heavy duty heat shrink, which I do use in this application, I use the heck out of these. And they've got some that, you know, are very, very large diameter. So if you need to get over some sort of a sheathing or, you know, a larger diameter wire bundle, that's what I use these for. So this came in really, really handy. When you're going side to side, let's say we have one circuit coming out of the Pathfinder like this, and I need a wire to go to the left side of the bike and a wire to go to the right side of the bike. Like I said earlier, you could use a T connector. If you have something like a Gold Strike lighting distribution block, it's not an issue because they have both left and right circuits built into the unit. The Pathfinder does not. Now Pathfinder supposedly is coming out with a new distribution block similar to the Gold Strike. It looks very similar to it, and it will have left and right circuits. In the future I may be upgrading to that on this motorcycle. We'll just have to see. But in the meantime, you can curl one of these back before you put the heat shrink on. Now I've got a wire going to the left and one going to the right. You want to be careful though not to pinch or crimp that wire too tightly. So before I put on my heat shrink tubing, I would pull this the opposite direction. Now I've got a wire that could go to the left side of the bike, one to go to the right side of the bike. So that's basically how we do that. We'll just slip one over here. Again, you don't want to put that wire into too tight of a bind because you don't want to run the risk of breaking the wires inside the insulation. So now we have something that looks like this. We have our 16 gauge and our two 18 gauges going in different directions. Well, I was doing this wiring and I started rethinking my accessory terminal, which is green and basically provides power. I can't think of any time I've added an accessory that needed power in the rear of the bike. It's always in the front, and that would be something like my GPS and also a little power adapter for the like a cigarette lighter adapter to power a phone or to charge a phone. And I don't know if 18 gauge is really enough to handle that. So what I've got coming out of the Pathfinder is 16 gauge, and I think I'm going to switch. So I cut off all my stuff. I'd already wired it up, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm not going to use the 18 gauge for the accessory. I'm also only going to run the accessory to the front of the bike on the left and right side. That way, if I need to add any kind of accessory that needs switched power, I'm pretty confident that 16 gauge will be enough to handle that draw. And like I say, 18 gauge may be enough. I'm not enough of an electrical whiz to really know, but I am using 16 gauge. All of the wires coming out of here, all of the wires coming out are 16. I'm using 18. Well, I have one circuit, this hot circuit over here, that I'm not going to use right now. And I don't like this bare wire just hanging out there. So I used to have some liquid tape, they called it, and I think it's almost identical to this because this says liquid rubber in a can. It's basically a rubber product. I'm just going to spray a little down here, and I'm just going to dip the tip of this into that just to seal up the end of that wire. Okay, so we're making a little progress here. I've got all of my circuits run. Here are the wires that are going to go to the front of the bike on the right side. Basically, this is a right turn signal, a ground, and a running light. And then on the right rear of the bike, I've got those same circuits. In addition, I've also got a brake light. That's the red, is the brake light. And of course, this will all eventually get loomed together. Hopefully it'll look a little nicer than it does right now. These are the wires that go to the battery. So right now I've just got them off to the side. This is the accessory wire that goes to the battery. And then on the left side of the bike, I've got all my wires. Let me go around the other side. And here I've got the wires that go to the front left side of the bike, which I've got the accessory wire for accessory power, running light, left turn signal, and ground. And then in the rear, I've got everything except for the accessory. I don't recall ever adding an accessory in the rear of the bike. If I do, I can always add that, but I've got left turn signal. The running wire is the white. The red, of course, is the brake light. And I don't even know if I'll end up even using these wires, but I'm going to have them set up. If I need to add any wiring to the left side of the bike toward the rear, all I have to do is take off this side cover. I don't have to pull the seat. And same thing here. These are all going to run up here and come in right up here. Okay, this is day 4 of my rewiring project. You can see my Pathfinder here, and it's going to sit kind of in the middle underneath the seat. And I've got the left side of the bike already loomed, and it comes down. It will go under this frame rail. You really won't even see it. These are the wires that go to the battery, so I'm not working with those right now. But I've got this loomed up to this point. And then it comes down here, and you can see it kind of splits right here. This is the one that will go to the rear of the bike, and this longer is going to go up to the front of the bike. And then my plan is that these will go inside. Here's my Wago connectors, and they'll go inside one of these little junction boxes. Of course, there's a lid that goes on this, so you won't even be able to see it. And I'll even mount it, I'll either mount it up here on top of the fuse box, or I'll mount it down here under the side cover. I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put it yet. But then any accessory, for example, my saddlebag marker lights, the wires normally would go up under the seat, be part of the mess. Instead, I'll just run them over here, probably down here, and up under into this, and I'll get all that loomed up as well. Okay, here I've got one of these little plastic junction boxes. Of course, I will put links where I bought these on Amazon in the description of the video. The lid pops off, it just snaps in place. And I'm going to drill a hole big enough for my wire harness to fit in. I'm going to have a hole on each side. See if we can pop this off here, and I'll show you this. Just use a screwdriver. And there's our case, and this just, like I said, it just snaps in place. So this is the right rear. All of my cables, I've got the white is the running light, yellow is the right turn signal, red is my brake light, black is the ground. So all of these, I'll have to take off my Wago connectors to get them into the case, obviously. Now these little plastic cases that I'm using are really only big enough to hold about 4 of the 3-terminal Wago connectors. If you want to go to the larger 5-terminal Wago connectors, you'd probably have to get one of the larger junction boxes. So all of these wires are going to fit down inside here like this. And you see how this heat shrink will actually go inside. Now what I can do is I can come in here with a little cable tie and put it in there, and that will prevent this from slipping out. I'm going to use a blue one just because it'll be a little easier for you to see. That's going to provide just enough to where that wire harness won't slip back up out of this box. So that's what it looks like right there. Okay, now we can put our Wago connectors back on. There we go. And so now these can just curl up in here. And when we put our lid on, they'll be kind of hidden. Like that right there. We got to remember we can't block our heated seat connector, which goes up here like this. So we have to make sure we've got this tucked away somewhere so that it doesn't interfere. Maybe it has to go back here like that. That would be a better location. So as long as it's out of the way of that heated seat connector, we're good to go. Okay, this is the right front. You can see my harness coming out here, or not my harness, but my loom here. I have not put any seal on it yet. I'm waiting on some to come in from Amazon, but once we'll put the heat shrink on there, it will kind of bind it to these wires. The box will fit back there just perfectly. My wires coming from the front of the bike for the Muth mirrors and the cowl lights and the show chrome side marker lights will all fit right up under here, come down, and we'll tie those into the junction box. This is on the right side. I'm doing basically the same thing identically on the left side as well. Okay, so my objective here is to run the wires from this show chrome side marker light up to right underneath the battery. I'm going to run those wires right over here, I hope, to my junction box. Now, I did a fish. I've got a fish, which is my long cable tie. It's about a 36-inch cable tie. And I was able to fish it between the frame and where it comes out down here, just above the muffler, kind of behind that front edge of the saddlebag. That's where everything is. Now I'm going to pull that fish through and pull my wires through, and we should be able to connect everything. Okay, so my wire harness is now through. I'm going to trying to look for a good place to zip tie. Now that would have been a lot easier if I had just removed this entire passenger footrest trim piece. Of course I could do it, and then I could cable tie it to the frame. And the next time I remove this, that's what I'll do. I don't want to do it now, but I will eventually cable tie this harness to this frame rail that goes underneath the battery. For now, I don't think it's a big issue. There's a lot of space under here. And obviously, you would normally run this right up under the seat and connect these wires to your show chrome isolator fuse block or whatever fuse block you're using. I don't need this much wire because I'm planning to hook everything up to this little junction box right here. And first, I'm going to test fit my side cover to make sure that this little junction box that I've rigged up here does not interfere with my side cover. So we'll try that next. So what I've done is I've put just a little piece of this 3M dual lock fastener on this side of the fuse box back here. And then I have added some dual lock fastener to the back of my junction box. And I did test fit the side cover. It will fit. Now I've drilled a couple of holes into the top of this. I call it the top because it's going to sit facing up. And my single wire coming from the Pathfinder spoiler will fit down into the small hole. And then my other wires that are coming from the Pathfinder accessory hub will fit into the larger hole. Now there's a kind of a medium-sized hole on the bottom, and that's what the 3 wires coming from my side marker lights. This is the harness. I don't have the end of the wires here because I've got to cut it off. And they'll come up from the bottom. So this is the wire coming from my Pathfinder spoiler. The blue wire is a left turn signal. We'll go ahead and put that into our Wago connector. Make sure it's in solid. Now they use a little bit different coloring scheme on the show chrome. Their turn signal wire is the red. So that will also go into this same connector here. We can connect our ground wires. Now the ground wire for my Pathfinder spoiler is actually on the right side of the bike, so we don't have to worry about that. The blue wire coming out of the show chrome is the running light. So I can hook that up to my white terminal here. That's hooked up now. Again, we don't have a brake light. So the only other wire left to connect right now is my ground on the show chrome. Because the only thing really wired into the left side rear of the bike is the show chrome saddlebag light. There is no other thing other than the Pathfinder spoiler left turn signal, which has already been connected. So we will go ahead and seal this one up. And now we're going to connect our ground up here. Everything feels solid. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is to be able to tuck all these wires up into this junction box so that they fit neatly. So this is my little 2-terminal Wago connector, and I'm just using it to terminate this. I don't like having a bare wire hanging out here. You could cut it off, but I'm just going to terminate it with this. That way, if I ever do need to add anything to a brake circuit, I've got that ready to go. So, and it takes up less space than one of these 3-terminal connectors. So let's see if we can't get everything to fit neatly up into this little case. And here's our lid. It basically snaps in just like that, and that is our wiring installation for the left rear of the motorcycle. Now I'm going to come in here and do another zip tie on the other side just to make sure they don't waffle around in there. So here I've got my white, which is the Pathfinder accessory hub. The blue one coming in here is from my spoiler, and down here is the green one, comes from the show chrome. Okay, since this is white, I know it comes from the Pathfinder, and that is a running light, so that's going to go in there. No, this is actually coming from the show chrome, and that's going to be a turn signal. So we're going to put that over here on the turn signal circuit, and I believe this is coming from the Muth. This red here by itself, and that is going to be a turn signal circuit as well. Of course, I'll have to test all these, but I'm pretty sure that goes in the turn signal. No, that's not right. This is the only other running light that comes off of there. These are ground, I know that. And this is a ground. Black is always going to be a ground. I think it was red and brown was the Muth. So this has to be a turn signal. Okay, before I put the bike back together, we want to make sure that all of our electrical connections are secure and that they're working. What I've done is I've plugged in my rear view mirrors because the turn signals won't work throughout the entire bike if these are not plugged in. Here I've got my Muth mirrors plugged in. This is my new daytime running light with sequential turn signals. Same on the other side. So let's turn the bike on and see if our running lights work. Daytime running lights are working on both mirrors. Daytime running lights on the cowl and the front fork lights are working. Fork light on the left side is working as well as the cowl light. Let's go to the back of the bike. Yes, running light is working back here, and the running light on the spoiler is working, and I don't have this up, but I'm gonna get under there. Yeah, that running light is working as well. Okay, let's test the turn signals. Left turn signal, you can see the sequential is working, the Muth is working. Let's check the left fork and the left cowl. Left cowl is working. left fork is working, and I can see the reflection on the floor that the left saddlebag light is working. Let's go check out this. And yes, our spoiler is working. Now we're going to check the right saddlebag, or I'm sorry, the right turn signal. Okay, the sequential front turn signal is working. Muth mirror is working. Right front cowl is working, and the right front fork is also working. Right saddlebag is working. And the spoiler is working. The last thing we're going to check is the brake. I can see the running light reflecting on my hand, and I'm going to press the brake pedal with my foot. And you can see the brake is working, and it does have the modulator. It's flashing. So it looks like a successful installation. I'm going to turn the bike off, and we'll start putting the bike back together. So this is what it looks like under the seat of my 2024 Honda Goldwing. I think it's a pretty clean installation with all of the loom and the heat shrink. Nothing is over the frame rails, so nothing will get pinched. I still have room to see everything. I think it's a nice, clean installation, but it was a lot of work. And I think that not many people would want to take the time and effort to do this, but this is what I wanted for a truly custom job. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really does help the channel. And make sure you watch part 2, where I show you what I did to protect my front wires from engine heat.